And it looks like we are live. We're going to let this breathe for just a second. Make sure we got green check marks across all of our glorious platforms. Looks like we're good to go. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country, and welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as always, is your Denver Broncos insider, Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, my good friend and colleague. He is the one and only Erick Trickel. Now, Erick, Denver Broncos training camp kicked off today. Today is Friday. And it was actually a lot of fun to be able to see some training camp videos, get some stuff going in on Twitter. A lot of very good news coming out of Dove Valley right now, including some stuff from Jerry Jeudy. Got some other breaking news to kind of get to you guys as well. But before we get into that, man, long time no see. How we doing, buddy?
So I just got to say, it seemed like you forgot who you were doing the show with there for a second.
No, not really. I have a spiel, and it actually got twisted up, and I said it backwards. So it wasn't I forgot who I was doing the show with. It's just, one of those brain farts is what we'll call it on this particular day, man. It's been kind of exhausting up in the Sanderson household with the wee baby caving, crawling around, have a train of guests coming in. I was off all week this week, but still had to go to work, unfortunately. But not having, my folks in town, having her folks come over and all of her family and all of my friends to come and meet the baby and everything like that. It's just been nonstop, a train of people in town, which not necessarily the worst thing in the world, but at the same time, it has been very tiring. So do bear with me today, guys. I'm kind of a little bit behind. So, but no, it's been fun.
Yeah, man, it's been a long week for me up here. It seems like this week was about 30 days long. Just like the last few months, it seemed like it's been 30 years already. But yeah, it's just been super tiring up here. Last week, I was super busy last weekend trying to get stuff done for videos and stuff like that. And so working basically 2 full weeks, it felt like, and just exhausted. I'm ready for a break. I actually get to have somewhat of a weekend this week. So just got to finish up some videos for you guys that are coming out here. I'll be sending them in tomorrow or Sunday. But there's a bunch of stuff that Chad already has that I sent in a bunch of videos. There's a series about Drew Lock coming out. Trying to think what else. There's my 53-man roster projections up, and then there's going to be something with the practice squad coming up as well. And then this week I'm sending in videos that have to do with the tight ends, talking about Albert Okwuegbunam, Noah Fant, something about the offensive line. I have something talking about the receivers, running backs, and talking about Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, a little bit of that stuff. So hopefully you guys check that all out on YouTube. And hopefully you guys are all subscribed on YouTube, the Mile High Huddle YouTube already too.
Yeah.
But so make sure you guys all check that out and everything. I think anyways, it's some pretty awesome content. And but I'm the guy who did it and recorded everything. So of course I think it's great. But it's a big day in training camp's underway, and it's a day that I didn't think was going to come there for a while. Glad it's here. Nice to see some of the news that's coming out of it. And just super excited to get into this and just break down a little bit from day one of training camp.
Yeah, man, I was pumped to be able to see some stuff coming out. There's some videos of Jerry Jeudy out there running around, videos of Phillip Lindsay catching balls out of the backfield against nobody, and everyone's making a big deal out of it. There's some actually very interesting news. But guys, before we get into that, first off, let's say hello to everybody in Broncos country that's joining us tonight on this live stream. Zach's Web Design, what's up, dude? Duke, Scott coming in, Darian Pease in the hizzy. Let's see here. I have Terry Randall up north of the 49th parallel up in Canada. Mile High Beauty, what's up, dude? Cody Potter. I know I saw Peter Middleton in the chat over in Turkey showing that Broncos country is not a geographic location. It is, in fact, a hashtag state of being. Now, before we get going, guys, also, go ahead.
Sorry, this comment I actually kind of want to figure out. Peter, are you talking about my roster projection from a few weeks ago? And if so, who was it? Because I can't remember who it was. Jonathan Harris? I didn't think I had Harris making the roster.
You and I
thought I had it Christian Covington.
You and I actually had it as Jonathan Harris when we did our the 2-hour show, and we had because that was the one that we went back and forth on. And you said that Jonathan Harris was going to be on the roster because Vic Fangio really likes him, and they were going to keep him.
That's right. Apparently that was wrong.
I
actually don't know why he got cut. I was told multiple times that Fangio liked him, but apparently not. What may be the case too is that they may like him. They just may not have liked him more than other guys they had on the roster.
Yeah, and that is what it is. All right, guys. Now, matters of business really fast here. This is the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can follow the show at DVDD_pods, the easiest way to keep your fingers on the pulse of what's happening with the Dove Valley Deep Divers. You guys can also follow me at Sanderson MHH and for Erick at Erick Trickel. Notice the CK in Erick. Also, follow at Mile High Huddle for instant news and analysis, opinion articles, film breakdowns of your Denver Broncos. It's the easiest way to stay in tune with what's going on with the Denver Broncos. And right now, you're really going to want to follow Mile High Huddle because I have currently a series going on milehighhuddle.com breaking down the AFC West and ranking the positions by team. So head on over and check that out.
Lance, we got to change the title of it from breaking down the whatever it is to angering Bronco fans.
Yeah, angering Broncos fans right now.
Because that's really what you're doing.
It really is. It's been a lot of fun, though. Got a lot of positive feedback. Now, guys, if you're in a position financially to be able to do so, head on over to huddleuppod.com. Get your merch. That's where you can find your hats, your T-shirts. There's a coffee cup, a face mask, hoodies, a little bit of something for guys, a little something for girls. Got the onesie that I'm going to get for Caven here soon once I get a little bit more money racked up. But there's something to fit your fancy. And if not, the three easiest ways that you guys can support the show are by doing these three things, subscribe wherever you're watching this, specifically on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, anything like that, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle, like every video that you guys see and watch. And if you love it, share it to as many Broncos fans as you can to help grow the show. Now, to start off the episode, as far as what has going on in training camp right now, Jerry Jeudy is stealing the headlines and comes out on day one and absolutely put up fireworks, guys. We're talking
against depth corners.
Yes, it was against depth corners. Let's first things first. Let's put that out there. He didn't actually face off against Bryce Callahan or AJ Bouye. He was going up against guys like Devontae Bosby, Michael Ojemudia, Duke Dawson, guys like that. So the depth cornerbacks, he did still have a very good day. Ran very good routes from the sound of it. Made a couple of really big plays down the sideline, including one where he cut on a dime and reversed field and ran for a touchdown. Another one down the right sideline where he made another defender miss as well, caught a touchdown pass as well. I think that one was from Jeff Driscoll in the back of the end zone. But Erick, for the number 15 overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft, Jerry Jeudy is looking like he's the real deal, at least in one day. I know let's pump the brakes just a little bit, but what else have you heard coming out of Dove Valley, man?
I just got to say this about Jerry Jeudy. I wouldn't say that obviously one practice doesn't make or break him, but he's showing what he showed in college. We knew he was a great route runner, and that's exactly what he's showing. And I mean, it's no surprise that he's able to beat up on these corners, these depth corners the Broncos have, because depth at corner has been one of the biggest things that I've been hounding as a weakness for so long. So I'm excited for him, but I want to see what he does against Callahan. I want to see what he does against Boye, because he's not going to be facing guys like Isaac Adam, Devontae Bosby, Devontae Harris. He's not going to be facing guys like that every single week. He's going to be facing some tough corners. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised to see him end up going against Chris Harris now that he's with the Chargers. And that's going to be a fun battle to watch there, if we're able to have it, of course. But, I'm not trying to sit here and be a downer on it. The hype is great and everything. But, one day doesn't make a star. That's what it's going to be. It's one day doesn't make a star, because we have seen in the past guys who've come into training camp and absolutely tear it up. And then, of course, we had preseason games during these other years and they fell apart in those preseason games, and they're out of the NFL now. Or they did enough to make the roster, Juwan Winfrey last year, after having a good camp in preseason, and then fall apart and get benched, which is what happened with Winfrey. So that's that. I really hope he keeps stepping forward. I really hope that this is just the start of it. We'll see what happens. I'm excited that we have a great route runner. We've needed somebody like Jerry Jeudy. I'm excited that he's out there making plays, but just don't mind me if I don't go head over heels in love with him just yet.
No, and I totally agree with that. I mean, I understand. I was pumped just to hear that Jerry Jeudy was out there and making plays, and honestly, to see it from everybody. I mean, Andrew Mason of DNVR, Zach Stevens, Ryan Konigsberg, all those guys, they did a really good job earlier today breaking down some stuff as well. But they were all tweeting out. Mike Kliss was tweeting out. Andy Lindahl had some out there. It just seemed like everywhere you looked on Twitter there for about an hour and a half, everything was coming out. Jerry Jeudy looks amazing. He's like, everyone is really turning their heads. I mean, he's actually getting some really high praise from some of the veterans on the roster as well, including Broncos starting safety Kareem Jackson, who said that about Jerry Jeudy and his route running ability. He said, quote, "I think it'll be very difficult because he has an unorthodox way of running routes. We were kind of talking about it earlier today. He can get in and out of his breaks better than anyone I've ever seen before. For him to be a rookie, his tempo and his routes, the way that he can change pace and the way that he sells things is very rare. It's going to be a challenge for opposing defenses and guys in the secondary. For us, getting a chance to see him every day is going to help us. There's another guy we see twice a year that kind of puts us in the mind of him in terms of getting in and out of breaks and running routes. I'm assuming he was probably talking about Keenan Allen there. And for us to be able to see him on a day-to-day basis is going to help us. He's going to pose a challenge for some other defenses as well, close quote. So for Kareem Jackson, 10, 11-year NFL veteran to say some stuff like that, one of the best route runners in and out of his breaks, yes. This is some coach speak here. What else is he going to say?
Yeah,
but still, that's some high praise coming out of a guy who's been a big vocal leader for this defense, has played at a very high level for the entirety of his career. So to say some stuff like that, I understand you don't want to down on your guys, but you don't go out and say something like that unless you mean at least 75% of it.
Tim Tebow's our starting quarterback. Just going to throw that out there. Tim Tebow's our starting quarterback. Just throwing that out there for that. Anyways, there's a couple things out here in the chat that I wanted to pick up real quick.
That was John Elway that was saying that, though.
But it's still the whole thing of coach speak. You don't down players that are currently on your roster.
Right.
Like teammates, coach, general manager, vice president of football operations. It doesn't matter. You don't down players on your thing. You want to pump them up. But yes, that is high praise from there, and it's going to be interesting to see how true that actually is of a statement, because we will find out. Either this year, next year, at some point, we will find out if what Kareem Jackson just said about Jerry Jeudy ends up being the truth or not. But Shayleaf came in and says, how come we haven't reached out to Logan Ryan yet? There's a few reasons for it. He still considers himself now he's deeming himself a safety now, even though he played cornerback last year, and he sent out a bunch of stats, or had his agent did, of starting safeties around the NFL that had him being towards the top of every single statistical category. But as I tweeted out, it didn't have things like yards per snap, yards per reception allowed, receptions allowed, total yards are allowed, touchdowns allowed, all of which that Logan Ryan was towards the top. He's just not that good anymore and has a high cost. Biggie Bronco said Isaac Adam ran with the number 1 today. He did. He's actually competing with Michael Ojemudia for the number 3, 2, technically, cornerback spot, because Bryce Callahan's going to move inside to the nickel. That's actually one of the things that we're going to talk about. So
yeah, it was.
I'll just talk about that real quick. During training camp, you always throw a bunch of things out there to see what happens. They believe in Isaac Adam. They believe he can develop. And he started to show flashes and moments of development towards the end of last year after he was benched, and then came back to be the number 2 corner for a little bit for the last few games. So they want to see if he can continue to keep that up, keep that development going, and seeing if the competition will bring out the best of him. But the most interesting thing to me is I think a lot of fans had it as Devontae Bosby pushing Michael Ojemudia, but there is definitely a clear-cut line there between Isaac Adam, Michael Ojemudia, and then Devontae Harris and Devontae Bosby. So there is definitely a gap between those two. And that's probably one of the more interesting takeaways from this, with Isaac Adam running with the number 1s along with Ojemudia.
Yeah, that is actually probably the biggest thing. And honestly, let's just talk about the depth of this cornerback position really fast. Isaac Adams, the elder statesman there. He's going into year 4 right now. I believe, is it year 4. So he's the elder statesman. They're going to give the guy the as many opportunities as they can, and being a former 3rd-round pick. Obviously, Ojemudia is going to come in. He's a better scheme fit. But right now, this is something that I've said on Dub LA Deep Divers. I've also said it, I believe, on Mile High Insiders as well, that I don't trust a rookie to come in and play at a high level right now. So why not at least try to milk whatever you can out of Isaac Adam and get him on the field early and often, see if he can fit, see if he can make that transition and be the number 2 guy that you wanted him to be when you drafted him 4 years ago. This is not like rocket science, guys. Michael Lowe is out there, and he's competing for the number 2 spot. He actually had an interception earlier today and is looking really good from everything that we can tell. But still, I would rather trust the Adam out there and see what he can do, even given his ups and downs, than trust a rookie to come in day 1 and start immediately. I really would.
I would for training camp. You let them go out there and you let them compete. As I said, is you just kind of throw things out there, and that's kind of why I saw somebody else mention about why Jerry Jeudy's running with the 2s. And they were throwing Tim Patrick and Deshaun Hamilton out there with the 1s with Cortland Sutton, just seeing what they could do. And it's hardly ever do you see rookies come in and have a clear-cut number 2 job or number 3 job or whatever. They have to go out there and earn it. So that's why we're seeing Jerry Jeudy running with the 2s. He has to go out there and earn it. And Michael Ojemudia, why he has to compete with Isaac Adam is he has to go out there and he has to earn that spot. Yep. Isaac Adam is the one corner they have or had on the roster before drafting him that they saw the most out of last year to sit in that spot. So, I mean, it's a good sign that Ojemudia is already right there with Yadam for this positioning for it. But yeah, they got to go out there and compete. And as you said, this is really Yadam's last chance. He either has to shows that he can handle that at corner and develop, or next year he's definitely being moved to safety, or he's gone. Like, those are the two options after this year if he doesn't cut it out at cornerback. So it's just them just kind of giving him that final shot, really.
Yeah. Cody Potter coming in with a super chat here. I like the defense this year and being in year 2 under Fangio. Can this defense eclipse the 2015 sack mark set by Denver at 52? I like our chances versus own lines we match up against this year. Hashtag Orange Crush 2020. Now, that's actually kind of an interesting question. It's really hard to project some statistics like that. Fangio's defenses do a really good job of creating pressure, but right now we got to see it from some of the interior guys. He really banks on a strong interior pass rusher as well to try to open some stuff up and get some really creative twists and stunts going. He doesn't like to bring a lot of pressure as far as blitzes comes. He's not bringing extra rushers. He's going to rush 3 or 4 guys primarily for the most part. Now, bringing in Jerrell Casey, that's going to be a huge boost. One of the better interior pass rushers in the NFL right now. But we've still got to see more out of Draymond Jones, who's coming into year 2, potentially a breakout player. Shelby Harris did not look good as a starter last year, is better in a rotational role. Mike Purcell really doesn't offer any kind of a pass rush aspect at all. But the biggest key here is having Bradley Chubb come back healthy. That ACL tear, I mean, even after he tore his ACL against Jacksonville last year, he came out, had I think it was a pair of sacks, a handful of pressures, a couple of huge stops, and finished out the game with a torn ACL. But
I don't remember him having a sack, but I remember him getting pressures and everything.
I thought he had at least 1 sack. I can't remember exactly. But anyways, so getting Bradley Chubb coming back, and from what Vic Fangio says, he looks healthy. He looks ready to go. They expect him to be ready to compete day 1. He was out there practicing earlier today. So it's very huge to see that. Jeremiah Tauchu, as far as a depth rusher goes there, I mean, 52 sacks to me is a little rich right now, but it's not completely out of the realm of possibility when you got a guy like Jerrell Casey on the inside that can really be a true disruptor. I mean, way better than Justin Smith was. Let's go back to San Francisco, 2012, 13, that time frame when Vic Fangio was a defensive coordinator. They had a pair of really good edge rushers in Alden Smith and Ahmad Brooks, and they had Justin Smith on the inside as an interior pass rusher, and they were wreaking havoc. They had a lot of sacks that year too, but 52, man, that's a lot.
This one's tough because there's a lot that really goes into getting that. Von Miller has to have a bounce back year. Bradley Chubb has to have a bounce back year. Jerrell Casey has to have a bounce back year. Draymond Jones needs to step up. Shelby Harris has to have a bounce back year because outside of pass deflections last year, Shelby Harris wasn't that good, guys.
No, he wasn't.
All of his sacks were considered coverage sacks, which mean they were more than 3 seconds after the snap. Outside of maybe I think one. One of the sacks was against the Tennessee Titans, and Marcus Mariota just ran straight to him. He got stalled at the line, and Marcus Mariota ran to him. God, Marcus Mariota was terrible. But 52 it's a hard number to achieve. I think they fall in somewhere in the 40s. I don't think they eclipse that number just yet. But I mean, who knows? If Von Miller and Bradley Chubb really do have great years and bounce back, I mean, it could happen. I'm just not betting on it. I wouldn't bet on it anyways.
Another big thing that you got to take into the aspect of this is not only the pass rushers that are up in the front of the defense, but you got to take into consideration the secondary. And with Vic Fangio liking to playing in cover 3, not pressing guys at the line of scrimmage, you're going to see a lot of quick passes, and that's what killed the Broncos last year too. Quarterbacks were getting the balls out of their hands so fast and early in the downs, hitting the top of their drops and 3-step drops and getting the ball out immediately, And with the cornerback depth, the way that it looks right now in Denver, it's hard to see that you're going to have, more than a second and a half worth of time to get after the passer. That means guys have to win very quickly. Do you want to bet that that's going to happen? I don't think so. And I'm sorry. Again, this is me pissing off Broncos fans across the country, but
that's what we do best.
Yeah, that's really what we look at things objectively. We bring you the best analysis that we can give. And with the cornerback depth right now, and you don't know, Von Miller again needs a bounce back season. Bradley Chubb's coming off a torn ACL. Jerrell Casey just got cut from the Titans, even though, and I mean, his contract was an albatross there. Traded, but still, you know what I mean. The Titans got rid of a top 5 interior defensive lineman for chips. Like a bag of chips is what they got. to
Well, they
get rid of.
needed to offload that contract for Ryan Tannehill and
That's
Derrick Henry, but
that's
like
fair.
it makes sense on their end. But you're not wrong. Like the whole point you're making, it's not wrong. It's actually a very astute point. Is Joel Casey? He did have a down year last year, but he's still really good. He's still considered one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, yeah, as we said, we just wouldn't bet on it. I mean, they have the potential to do that, but just not thing. I mean, and the biggest point is the one that you made too, is playing off coverage so much, you really open up the quick passing game. And we saw teams last year go to that to just counter Vic Fangio's defense, counter what pass rush that the Broncos were able to generate, and just move the ball effectively and efficiently that way for a decent part of it. And I know that the Broncos defense ranked towards the top in passing. I think they're in like the top 10, maybe top 5.
Yeah.
Can't remember exactly. But I mean, that stat's really misleading when you turn on the tape. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. I definitely like what it is. But we got to get back to training camp. Because there was actually other big news that came out today. And unfortunately, Austin Fort, he tweaked his knee during a team workout, and he has to have a scope done on it, and he's going to miss some time for that. And this is a guy that a lot of people thought that last year, I mean, it was reported he made the roster last year. Like, that was said and done. Like, he made the roster, then he tore his ACL, landed on injury reserve. So this year, I mean, he had a chance to come and compete, and I don't think he really had a shot at the roster, but I think the practice squad was really likely for him. And I mean, still maybe, and once he comes back, maybe he's able to show enough there, because I'm sure the Broncos have plans for him in the future. Maybe next year competing with Nick Vanette for that inline blocking role, which is something that Fort can do very well.
Yep.
Maybe that's what their plans are with him. At the very least, I don't see him not being with the Broncos this year. But I think they can use this injury and eventually put him on injured reserve and just either bring him back later in the year, if they need to, of course, or just let him come back and compete next year.
Well, when you say bring him back later in the year, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure. I know what you're getting there with the like put him on IR with the designation to return. The only way that I could see that potentially happening is just because everything might tweak with what's going on in the world. We don't know the lists, the reserve lists and everything like that. Guys that get sick and get put on the reserve list, they might allow some more guys to kind of fluctuate back and forth off of that. I don't think he's going to be an IR designated to return kind of a guy. He has to come back after week 8, I think it is. Or 8 weeks out after being on IR. They have to activate you or keep you on injured reserve. But anyways, to me, Austin Fort really had the best opportunity of any of the Broncos tight ends of unseating Andrew Beck, because Austin Fort played fullback at Wyoming. I mean, I followed his career. He never was really playing at the tight end position. He's a very good athlete for what he does, but he played fullback primarily at the University of Wyoming and is a very good receiver out of the backfield. So to be able to unseat Andrew Beck as that tight end fullback kind of a hybrid player, that was where his role was going to be. And I agree with you, Eric, that the practice squad was probably his biggest destination. But with him tearing his ACL last year, now he's got to go get a scope done. This is per 9 News Mike Kliss, the Broncos mouthpiece for what it is. He actually said they're going to do a scope on him here in a few days, make sure everything's good to go. He'll be out at least probably 4 weeks. Arthroscopic knee surgery is usually a 4-week recovery period. Well, by that time, we're already into the beginning of the regular season. He's probably not going to make this roster. IR seems to be probably the way to go. And it's unfortunate. Now, other tight end news coming out of Dove Valley right now, this is actually kind of a surprise to me, and it may be a surprise to everybody else in Broncos country, but the tight end 3 competition is not quite as clear cut and dry as what we thought it was going to be, with 4th round rookie Albert Okwuegbunam coming out of Missouri being the guy that the Broncos are lining up in the tight end 3. And this is actually, Darian P has it up here on the screen. Why is Butt shown on every Broncos video they share on social media? Well, the reason that is because Jake Butt and Troy Fumagalli are actually rotating reps at the 3rd tight end position right now, with Jake Butt looking very good and coming on strong, coming off of that torn ACL from last year. So, Eric, there's been a lot of hype coming out, and I've actually said it a couple times as well. If Jake Butt is truly healthy, and if he can stay on the field, he has every right to be on this Broncos roster, because going back to 2017 when he was drafted, he was the best tight end in college football at that time, a surefire top 40 pick, if not a first-round pick. And the torn ACL and whatever bowl game, I think it was a Fiesta Bowl, But when that happened, obviously you're not going to take a guy with a torn ACL, but he was the best blocker in the draft, the best route runner, had the nicest hands. There was still some issues you had to work with, but Jake Butt, if he can come back and play healthy, there's a chance he could be tight end 2 on this roster just because he's so much better as a receiver than Nick Van Ed is.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they've kept him around for a reason, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
They wouldn't sit there. They wouldn't keep him around if they had no intentions of trying to do something with him for the future. In the 3 games he has played in, which it's unfortunate that it's all he had, he showed a lot. I mean, Bronco fans were super hyped about what he was able to show in those 3 games, and then he got hurt again. So yeah, it's a very obvious reason why the Broncos believe in him, why they're getting him out there, and why they want to see something from it. But this is his last chance. Yeah. I have no doubt in my mind that is the case. This is his last chance to finally make it. He's got to stay healthy. They hope that the extended time off from it was a big help for him, being able to and getting his knee all cleaned up and everything. Hopefully he is, because he was impressive out there today. Like, he was one of the most talked about players, probably like 3rd or 4th most talked about player behind like Jeudy and Locke. Like, then it was probably Butt right there. So they definitely like what they see. Troy Fumagalli, he's another one who he's just hasn't really shown it out there on the field. I mean, last year he was praised for how good his hands was. Then he saw time in the season, he had struggles with his hands. So him getting that time, I mean, and who knows, this could be also something to do more with Albert Okwuegbunam than Butt or Fumagalli. Albert Okwuegbunam, he's got a lot of hype from Bronco fans, but he's got a lot of issues. He is a terrible blocker. He can only run one route at the moment, and that's a down the seam, basically. That's all he is. He can't turn. I mean, he can be a decent red zone weapon, but they have other guys to be that red zone weapon for him. So maybe the plan is to have Troy Fumagalli or Jake Butt be that tight end 3 behind Noah Fant and Nick Van Ed. Get Albert Okwuegbunam on the practice squad where they're able to protect 4 players and protect him so another team can't claim him. Like, that may be their plan for it. And I mean, I still like Jake Butt. I mean, the injuries suck, but hopefully he gets it. Hopefully he gets it together, and hopefully he finally gets it. Is able to get out there on the field, because, as you said, he was the most talented tight end in that class before the injury. Then he got hurt. Obviously, things have changed since then. I mean, George Kittle has gone in the complete opposite direction of Jake Butt. I mean, he's been out there almost every game. Like, maybe I know he's missed some games with an injury, but he hasn't had near the bad luck that Butt has had with injuries. So yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on going forward.
Jake Butt was one of my favorite players in the 2017 NFL draft, and right behind him, especially at the tight end position, was George Kittle, just because I watched him when he was at Iowa and watched what he was able to do as far as a blocker goes. And something that Mike Mayock pointed out to me, and I went back and did some confirmation bias on this just to make sure that I was actually seeing what he was seeing. When you go and you fire out of your stance as a blocker, there's a misstep a lot of times, and especially with tight ends that aren't natural and true blocking tight ends. Jake Butt doesn't have that. So what I'm saying is, you're down in your 3-point stance and you're set. Your first motion should be forward, and your hand should hit your target immediately. A lot of times what you'll see with tight ends that aren't true and natural blockers is what they'll do is they'll move their back foot back and then step through and then initiate contact. So they're leaning a little bit forward. They have to move their momentum back and then fire out of their stance and hit somebody. So with Jake Butt, you don't see that. George Kittle was another version of that, where you didn't see that with him at Iowa. You didn't see that with Jake Butt up at Michigan. So those 2 guys, as far as blockers, now there was a question that came in as, how is Jake Butt as a blocker? He's good firing out of his stance, has good hand contact, it actually keeps his hands inside, and does a very good job with his technique, but he's more of an effort blocker than a true mauler in that aspect. He's not a very strong kind of a player. He's more finesse than actual true bully player. George Kittle was a much more stronger blocker at Iowa, and that's just because what they asked the tight end position to do there. But at the same time, Jake Butt's still a very good blocker for what he does. He's just not I'm going to grind your face into the ground and bully you down and take you over that way. He's going to be kind of more in the way and use more leverage than actual strength.
Yeah, and one thing, too, that I noticed with him is talking about the strength is one big thing when it comes to blocking is grip strength, and that's your ability to really highlight your ability to sustain blocks, and Jake Butt doesn't have that. We have a couple donations here. Eclipse came in donating $1. Eclipse, thank you for the donation, man. We really appreciate that. Jeff C. came in with a $3.99 donation, said, highlights for Jeudy will be nice over the season. I'm sure they will. Like,
Yeah.
I'm super excited to see him. I'm super excited to watch what he does this year, even though he was my wide receiver 3 in the draft. And then Terry Randall from Canada.
I know.
I know. Says the countdown continues. Hashtag state of being. Hashtag Broncos world. Thank you, Terry, for the donation. Countdown for what? Did I miss something?
Oh, just the countdown. It's really just getting started now. Training camp is officially underway, so the countdown continues. No, Terry,
I get it now. I get it now. All right,
Terry,
thank you, Terry, for the donation.
I heard you.
I'm trying to read what the sign says behind you.
Oh,
I can't quite make it out.
I can't see it. I heard you, Terry, on the Huddle Up podcast the other day, and you did a really good job, man. It's a lot harder to do what we do and to be up in front and form cohesive sentences and do a good job as far as giving takes and whatnot. And you actually held your own. I'm pretty proud of you, man. And congratulations to you for being able to come on. Now,
I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not.
Erick's kind of
sorry.
Being a Debbie Downer. Eric's kind of being a Debbie Downer. Have you read any of the articles that I put out on milehighhuddle.com over the last week? I am being a Debbie Downer. I called Noah Fant the worst tight end in the AFC West this week. Well, not really. The Broncos tight end room is the worst tight end room in the AFC West this week. Go and check that out, guys. However, I did have high praise. I had an article published this morning on the Broncos offensive line. They are going to be a very sneaky good unit this year. I had a whole bunch of stats to go in there with it as well. Garrett Bowles technically is the best left tackle in the division right now, and I don't necessarily think that anyone can argue with that. The only one that you might be able to is Erick Fisher, but he also missed 8 games last year and gave up 2 sacks and 25 pressures on almost 200 total less snaps than Garrett Bowles did. So we'll see how it all shakes out, but Garrett Bowles technically is the best left tackle in the AFC West right now. Go ahead and check that out, milehighhuddle.com, guys.
And Dylan was absolutely right. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm cautiously optimistic when it comes to Jerry Jeudy and just the Broncos in general. It's just kind of my nature. I'm not an overly optimistic person as it is. I tend to see the down things in everything, and that's actually something that we'll talk about a little bit later because we have something that I want to talk about at the end of the show. We'll definitely get to that. Yeah. And Steven comes in and says 11 more days until Madden 21 comes out. Steven, let me know how it is. I don't buy Madden anymore. It's the same game. It's the same game every single year. I've lost interest in it. And I don't play video games that much anymore, really. Although I have been getting into Call of Duty Warzone, but that's more so because I play with a good friend of the podcast, Luke Polglaze.
Yeah. I actually have not played Madden since, Madden 25, I think. That was the one with Calvin Johnson on the cover, the Hall of Fame edition or whatever the heck it was. I haven't played Madden since then. So that was 2013. So I don't know.
How long ago?
Yeah, that was that long ago. But anyways, guys, back to the Denver Broncos and what's going on with the Broncos at training camp. Just briefly here, and we had a question earlier. I do want to just address this really fast, just because there are people freaking out all over Broncos country because Drew Lock threw 2 interceptions in practice today. And Eric, I know how you feel about training camp interceptions. Please educate these people.
Training camp interceptions means squat. Okay, training camp is the time where you want to hash out the kinks. You want to get timing down with your receivers. I can't remember the exact number, but I know in Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starting quarterback, that training camp, he threw a bunch of interceptions. And the first 4 days, he threw almost 20 interceptions. It was a ridiculous amount. Last year in the first few days of training camp, Jimmy Garoppolo threw a bunch of interceptions, and he ended up going on to be one of the not the best quarterbacks, but one of the safest quarterbacks when it came to throwing the ball. It's getting that. It's working out the kinks. It's working out the timing with your receivers, and that is something that Drew Lock really has to do because he has new receivers and Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler, and then Cortland Sutton. One of the interceptions Cortland Sutton slipped during his route. I mean, when your receiver slips, I mean, it just sucks. Defender has no competition for the ball, so that's kind of that. And then talk about Drew Lock. I mean, outside of those 2 interceptions, really one interception that was really his fault. He looked really good today. He made some really sharp throws. He dropped some throws right in the bucket. Jeff Driscoll also looked really good today, and so did Brett Rippon. They all made some nice throws, and there's definitely a clear pecking order here. Drew Lock is the number 1 quarterback. Jeff Driscoll is the number 2, and Brett Rippon is the number 3. Today that made that very clear. Now, Can Brett Rippon go and compete for that number 2 spot? Possibly, but there's definitely a gap there, and the reps in the team drills really showed that.
Yeah, Ryan O'Halloran actually has a piece up on the Denver Post right now. If you guys get a chance to go check that out really fast, where he breaks down exactly what happened at training camp today. And I mean, Drew Lock took, I think it was like 30. They split it very clearly. You're number one, you're number two, you're number three. It was like 35 reps for Lock, 25 for Jeff Driscoll, and like 12 or 15 or something like that for Brett Rippon. And like they made it very clear. This is what's going to happen. This is how this is what the pecking order is. And Drew Lock actually looked really good from what I understand for the most part today. Went like 10 out of 11 or 10 out of 12 in the 11 on 11 period. Had a struggle in the 7 on 7s where he did throw an interception directly to Alexander Johnson. So that's not necessarily the best look for him in 7 on 7s. You really want to dominate that session because there's no one coming. You don't have to step up into the pocket. It's shells. Literally, it's wide receivers versus cornerbacks and linebackers. There's no offensive or defensive linemen on the field, so you don't really have to pick through the trash in front of you. You're looking at wide open field in front of you. And when you throw a ball directly into a linebacker's hands, one that's been really questioned as far as his coverage ability over the last, last 10 or 11 games that he played, he was not tasked to do coverage. And Alexander Johnson, when you throw a football directly into his hands in a 7 on 7 period in the first practice, like that's not necessarily, a very good sign. However, training camp interceptions mean absolutely zero. Drew Lock is still young. He has 5 games worth of starting experience. This is his first training camp as the true starting quarterback. And he also has a plethora of young wide receivers. I mean, Cortland Sutton's going into year 3, and he's the elder statesman in the Broncos wide receiver room. Okay, so you guys got to calm down just a little bit. The interceptions mean absolutely zero. Now,
so, real quick, Chris Hernandez came in with a donation, $4.99. Thank you, Chris, for the donation. Says at least there was a Callahan sighting with the training camp interceptions. #, he is real. Yes, he is real, and he had a great day today.
Yes, he did.
Not just the interceptions. He was tough in coverage.
Yeah. So Vic Fangio actually came out and said that he had a very good day. His foot feels great. He's healthy. He's ready to go. He's fired up and actually had a very good day. Not only did he have an interception in practice, that was actually who intercepted Lock the second time on when Cortland Sutton slipped on his route and fell down. Bryce Callahan made a hell of a play on the football. I actually saw the highlight of that. But not only that, he had like 2 or 3 pass breakups as well, where he's being very feisty in coverage and showing the ability that he had back in 2018 when he was with Vic Fangio and the Chicago Bears. So Bryce Callahan actually coming on very strong right now. But even bigger than Bryce Callahan is probably what's going on at the Broncos right tackle position. And obviously, Juwan James opted out of the 2020 season due to issues with the ongoing pandemic and everything going on with that. Elijah Wilkinson coming back off of the physically unable to perform list after offseason ankle surgery. But he rotated snaps, Elijah Wilkinson did, with Jake Rogers. And Jake Rogers actually had a fairly decent day from what it sounds like, other than struggling
outside of Von Miller.
Outside of Von Miller, but what right tackle doesn't struggle with Von Miller? I mean, he's the best pass rusher in the NFL. So,
Mitchell Schwartz.
Well, that's true. Trent Brown had a
pretty good game against him too. Yes, last year, almost every single tackle had a good game against Miller because Miller was not good last year. But yeah, I mean, I think that obviously he's not going to be the starter. And then there's the whole thing that DeMar Dotson, he was just signed, that he's still getting acclimated and all this stuff like that, getting the playbook down. So obviously he's not going to be in there. I think he's just a placeholder right now, rotating with Elijah Wilkinson. But I think that the reason why this is news is that it kind of points to him being the offensive tackle 4, which should be very concerning. And I know that a lot of people here hate it when I actually start talking about Garrett Bowles, but I'm sorry, I kind of got to here. But if Jake Rogers ends up as a number 4 guy, they better hope that Garrett Bowles stays out there on the field because Jake Rogers can't play left tackle. Elijah Wilkinson, I have no faith in his ability to play left tackle. And DeMar Dotson, just leave him at the right side. Leave him there. That's what he's done for so long. You don't want to flip him because, as multiple offensive linemen have said, that it's easier to go from tackle to guard than it is to go from playing the right side to the left side without experience. And it's like trying to wipe your own butt with your left hand, or non-dominant handed for those of you who are left-handed. It's like doing that. So you have to do it completely differently. And it just feels weird and unnatural and just weird.
Yeah. I don't know. Honestly, I think that Jake Rogers is probably going to win that swing tackle job anyways, just because I think Elijah Wilkinson is going to be the swing tackle guard, and he's going to be the first guy on the field regardless of who goes down. So if Dalton Reisner goes down, Elijah Wilkinson's coming in. If Graham Glasgow goes down at right guard, Elijah Wilkinson's coming in. He's going to be that first guy. Doesn't matter who goes off the field, whether it's Garrett Bowles, Dotson. Seriously, he's going to be the first guy. Jake Rogers is probably going to be the primary left tackle position switch out. As far as if Garrett Bowles goes down, I would rather see Jake Rogers come in than Elijah Wilkinson, especially after what we saw with Wilkinson last year at right tackle. And I think Jake Rogers can at least do that, even though he struggled last year. But I really don't want to see Elijah Wilkinson playing tackle in the NFL ever again, just plain and simple. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, he's going to be that guy.
I think that the only one to really push for Rogers for that swing tackle spot is Quinn Bailey. And he's got to show that he can play both sides of it. I think that's going to be the key. If you want to earn that number 4 tackle spot for Calvin Anderson, Hunter Watts, or Quinn Bailey, they have to go out there and they have to show they can play either side and play it well. Because Jake Rogers last year, I mean, he in the preseason, he looked really good at right tackle. And I know Nick Kendall, our colleague, he's often talked about how he got owned against the Arizona Cardinals. It was by a fourth or fifth round rookie and everything. But that came when he was playing left tackle. He looked so unnatural there. He was terrible playing left tackle. At right tackle, he was actually pretty good. Dylan Von Arx came up with a $5 donation saying, just showing some love for love #DVDD. Thank you, Dylan, for the donation. We really appreciate that. And then there's a question earlier that's one that I at least really wanted to answer. Lance, I know you aren't into college football. Well, I don't want to say that. You don't do as much work with college football as I do. No, but he asked, what player could have been this year's Joe Burrow, but can't have a big season because the 19 that shall go unnamed. And I think James Campbell actually took him. I saw him in there, and it's the whatever Dakota State it is.
North Dakota State quarterback Trey Lance. I knew exactly who we were going with this.
No, not the quarterback, the offensive tackle, the left tackle.
Dylan Raduns, yeah.
Raduns, however you say his name. I'm terrible with names. I seriously, real quick, I practiced for about 15 minutes learning how to say Albert Okwuegbunam's name because I had to do a recording talking about him. And I know I have to say it correctly for the recordings and everything, and I still butcher a bunch of different names. It's seriously 15 minutes of just playing it on Google over and over and over and over again, saying it. And I still had to try to take that recording over 3 different times because I kept messing it up. But yeah, Dylan Raduns would be my guy. I mean, he's a guy who I really believe that he could push for not the top tackle spot. That's definitely the Oregon guys. But he could push for that number 2 tackle spot if he was able to have a season.
Samuel Cosme, fringe first rounder, potentially. I love Samuel Cosme at the left tackle position. In fact, I can't remember who it was that did a mock draft earlier this week that had the Broncos taking Samuel Cosme at the left tackle position. But he could probably be that offensive tackle number 2 over Alex Leatherwood. So that would be my guy.
I don't like Samuel Cosme. I'm not a fan of his tape. Just not a fan of him, man. I saw somebody.
He's a dancing bear, is what he is. He's a very finesse player. He's not a mauler, at least for live.
Pushed over all the time.
Pretty much, yeah. He's very weak, but you know what? He's very technical. He has very good hand placement. He's a dancing bear, good feet.
It reminds me of what's his face, the Blindside guy, Michael Orr.
Yes.
He reminds me of him because Michael Orr, he wasn't a big mauler guy. He was, I mean, I know that Phil made him out to be, but he really wasn't. He was that dancing bear type, and he struggled in the NFL because he couldn't handle power.
Yep.
Cody Potter came in with the $5 donation. Will Drew Lock be able to see a 5'8" Lindsey on a swing pass over Giant Dotson? And Broncos Week 1 predictions: Denver 24, Tennessee 9. My pick. I'm actually not going to do a prediction, simply because I have a video coming out that's going. I know I did a 16-week preview earlier a couple months ago, but during the season I'm going to do one that's even more in depth, and there we'll have my prediction for that game and everything. And I still have to go do all my film stuff and film breakdown of the Tennessee Titans for that and get that all figured out. But yeah, definitely. And then as for being able to see Drew Lock, the question is, I mean, it is a good question if we'll be able to see him. I mean, behind the 6'9" DeMar Dotson, who, according to Beast, rivals me in height because I'm 7 foot. But then the question becomes: will Philip Lindsay catch the ball? Like if he does see him, we'll see. We'll see.
That was one thing, and everyone's been hyping up Philip Lindsay right now and everything that he's got going on as far as catching the football. He's been putting in work, and I mean, they've shown the hype videos, and there was the one where he's standing there pumping his arms back and forth and putting his hands up and catching the ball, and standing there pumping his arms back and forth, put it up and catch the ball. Okay, you can work on your hands all you want to, buddy, but can you actually learn how to run a route? Please, I want you to show some patience in the screen game. Set up your blockers a little bit. Come out from behind your blockers, catch the ball on a reliable basis, just catch the ball first thing, and then still be able to work your way through some traffic, which you're actually pretty decent at, showing some quick burst first step ability, and move that way. I also want to see if you can run a circle route, an arrow route, a quality flat route where you come out of pass protection, which you're not going to be asked to do. Philip Lindsay, I understand you've got a chip on your shoulder, dude, and there's a lot to
have
prove.
A chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, go out there
and
work.
Prove us wrong. That's what it comes down to.
Yep. And people can get pissed off all they want to, but you know what? Philip Lindsay proved us all right for the last 2 years. I mean, Royce Freeman.
There's a reason they went and got Gordon.
Yeah, Royce Freeman proved Philip Lindsay wrong the entire time. When Philip Lindsay said, "Well, I'm a better receiver than everybody wants it," Royce Freeman had more catches and more targets last year in half as amount of time as Philip Lindsay saw on the field. Plain and simple. Yeah. Like there's a lot to go into this, and it's not just the ability to catch the football. Let's show some ability as a route runner, because right now you have one speed. It's that quick first step, and I'm at high speed, and I'm not going to stop running at high speed until I hit the ground or I knock myself out on the goalpost. One of the two. You have to show some nuance. You have to show some patience. You have to be able to slow your feet down, set your blockers up in the screen game. You have to flash your hands and then move, and then flash your hands again. Like, there's a lot of different things to go into as a route runner at the running back position that Philip Lindsay just doesn't do.
Yep, and there's a lot more that we have to talk about running backs, especially the running back 3 battle. I know Beast asked about it, but there was somebody that made a comment about how after the season I should do a grade for Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb. I definitely will, as long as I don't forget. Like, I actually had full intentions to do that. I just can't forget doing that. And Cody Potter asks, when's the next round of cuts? The next round of cuts is at the end of September or end of August, when they cut down to the 53. They go straight to 80 to 53. They did away with the 2 cut down days.
Yep.
So it's just the final one now. Anyways, back to running backs here really quick. September 5th, 4 p.m. Eastern. James Campbell coming in and saving our butts, because I didn't know when it actually was. I couldn't tell you the day or anything. Anyways, running back 3.
For the win. James Campbell for the win. Every
season. He saves our butt a lot. You know that?
If you ever want to know anything, get it, James Campbell. I believe he actually dropped his first article right before the Broncos signed DeMar Dotson, saying how the Broncos need to go out and sign Riley Reef. This was earlier this week. Changed his Twitter.
Which was a better idea.
It was
James,
a better
I'm
idea.
with you. It was a better idea.
Yes, it was. James, make sure you drop your Twitter handle in the chat, please. I believe it's Campbell MHH or something like that. It used to be @Jolt from the Holt, but
Yes.
Get at James, because that guy knows a lot about football. Even being from London, I mean, he is very smart and very astute. He knows a lot about the NFL and what's going on. So thank you again, James, for getting back at us. Now back to the running back position. Eric, go ahead.
Real quick, James, I want to come back to your comment about Tesca making the squad over Reed. I really want to come back to that. Yep. Don't let us forget. We just got to get through this last few stuff. There's his Twitter handle @JamesC_MHH. Make sure you guys are go following him. And then Todd Anderson came in and said, then there's the 12 on the practice squad. There's 16 on the practice squad now. That's been fixed, or that's been changed. Anyways, running back 3 now. Royce Freeman has the leg up on it, and one of his main competitions, or his main piece of competition really, was Levante Bellamy. He was terrible today. Like, I'm sure everybody's heard about the 2 drops. One of them, granted, was low, but he dropped 2 balls. And when you're a guy who has a speed and everything like that, you've got to be able to catch the ball, because you work best in space. Can't work out of space if you don't catch the ball. Now, I think, and really doing the study on him when I did my player profile for him, is Jeremy Cox. I think that he has a more of a shot at winning running back 3 than Levante Bellamy does, because he's got size, he's got power, he's got good speed, he can block, he can run between the tackles, he can run outside the tackles, and he can catch. He can do it all. He's that guy that they kind of wanted Royce Freeman to be, that Royce Freeman isn't. So I really like Jeremy Cox. We'll see what happens. I think that Royce Freeman will continue to have a leg up on him, and I think his receiving ability is going to keep him there. But I also think it's the fact that the Broncos don't want to give up on him just yet with the 3rd round pick invested in him.
Yeah. It's been kind of unfortunate watching Royce Freeman just because the players that we saw at Oregon, where they were running a lot of inside zone, and he was really doing a good job with that. When he got to the NFL level, he really wants to start to be that home run threat that he never had the speed to be able to do that. And he wants to work on the outside and work his way back in and not run the true inside zone that they were running at Oregon. And for some reason, that just boggles my mind. However, it's very good to have a guy like him. He plays so similarly to Melvin Gordon. They actually have a very similar style of play. Melvin Gordon's probably a lot more suited to run the inside zone and actually does a lot better doing that. But
actually,
Royce Freeman, what do you mean?
So I mentioned earlier that I was doing a piece on the running backs and the battle between Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay. And some of that, as I talk about, I break them down between inside running, outside running, receiving, and blocking. And actually, Phillip Lindsay was a lot better between the tackles than Melvin Gordon was.
Really? That's
a lot better.
Well, that's
significantly better.
That doesn't
even better outside the tackles too.
That doesn't surprise me, though, because Phillip Lindsay, especially with his size and stature and his quick first step agility, and he does those little slalom runs where he's jumping back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He wades he scrapes through the trash. As a running back, to be able to scrape through the trash on the defensive line and create a tiny, minute little sliver of a running lane and turn a 1 yard loss into a 4 yard gain, or even a 6, 7, 8 yard gain, because he did that a lot last year as well. Running between the tackles, even though he's not like built and suited for it, he's actually very good at it because he's so small and he's so quick getting through the hole. Melvin Gordon's a power runner. He's going to bring more power coming and hitting the hole, but still at the same time, he doesn't have the speed to run on the outside. Phillip Lindsay does. He has that quick first step to be able to get and break the edge if he needs to. Melvin Gordon's not going to do that. He's a long speed, not a quick first step. And if you want to have a good runner on the outside, you have to have a quick first step, get to top speed as quickly as you can, and literally break the edge. Melvin Gordon doesn't have that.
And real quick, too, is with Phillip Lindsay, his quickness is what makes him good. He doesn't have long speed. He's quick. He's agile. He added 10 pounds. How much is that going to weigh him down? We have seen multiple times before players add – I keep shaking my desk. We've seen multiple players add like 10, 15, even 5 pounds, and they drop in their quickness. Von Miller, historically, in 2013, that's the year he added all that weight. Then he got hurt and missed time and had the suspension and everything. But he added that weight for it, and he didn't look the same. He looked a little bit slower, less explosive out there. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this affects Phillip Lindsay adding 10 extra pounds to his body, a smaller framed body at that. So it's going to be interesting to see. And then real quick, let's finish up this stuff, and then I want to get back to James' comment about Tuska, and then the thing at the end. But talking about wide receiver real quick, we talked about Jeudy. Hamilton had a really good day out there, and then as today showed with KJ Hamler, you got to deal with the highs. Or you got to deal with the lows for the highs. He had a huge catch down the sideline, but he also had a drop, a very bad drop that led to an interception. So you just got to deal with both of that from him.
Yeah, they were working in a red zone drill, and I believe it was Jeff Driscoll threw the football, and it went right directly through KJ Hamler's hands, and it was above his head, but he still should have made that catch. Right directly through his hands, and Trey Marshall picked it off in the back of the end zone. So that's a big thing with him and that was something that we talked about a lot on Dove Valley Deep Divers with KJ Hamler, is the drop issues that he had at Penn State. I believe it was like over 16%. He has a very high drop rate. You have to work with that with him. The speed, the explosion is great to have. I really want to see him on jet sweeps. I keep pounding that table. Jet sweeps and bubble screens, stuff like that. Get him the ball in space and let him use that elite speed. But you have to work with him on catching the football. He had a great diving catch down the sideline, I believe is what it was, from Jeff Driscoll as well. Yeah. But, man, that one drop – he beat Duke Dawson on that, where he full extension layout. It was a beautiful play. But the frustrating drop right over the middle of the field, where it went right through his hands and turned into an interception in the end zone. Like, you can't have that from KJ Hamler. You absolutely have to catch that football, man.
Yeah, definitely. And it's good to see Deshaun Hamilton had somebody had a good day. He showed that chemistry with Drew Lock there towards the end. But, man, your whole thing was wanting to see jet sweeps from that. I don't know how you haven't had enough of that after last year with Noah Fant. I don't want to see a jet sweep in Denver for years.
It's a lot different when you have a guy that
I don't care. I don't want to see them. And they better listen to me.
When you have a guy that runs 4.27 with an elite quick first step ability like KJ Hamler, or even Philip Lindsay would have been a better jet sweep player. You have Noah Fant, man, on an unblocked jet sweep too, an unblocked edge defender on a jet sweep, and you just pull Juwan James. You have to at least chip that guy. Completely untouched Max Crosby. The first play of the game is the worst play design I've ever seen in my life. Noah Fant motions in on a zip motion, motions across, gets a turnaround jet sweep handoff, and unblocked edge defender Max Crosby like sat there and was like, "Are you kidding me? I'm wide open on the very first play, and here we go. I'm going to get a tackle to start." And it was the end of everything for the Broncos that game because Juwan James didn't even chip him. There was no attempt to literally untouched edge defender. It's awful. Please, if you're going to do something like that, you got to have a guy that has some ability to first step quickness, cut up inside, and get back up behind the offensive lineman. It was so bad.
Lance, I love you, man, but you're so easy to trigger when talking about that. Just mention it, just gets him going.
That play literally has me to the end. One last thing really fast. I do want to get this in, and then Eric, I'll let you do your thing before we get out of here. The one other big piece of news from Broncos camp coming in today was again on the offensive line, and it has to do with the center position. And Lloyd Cushenberry, the Broncos' third-round pick in 2020, is not playing with the first team right now. He's struggling to pick up the playbook and everything like that. Again, with the rookies, you don't want to have your rookies out there starting right off the bat. You're going to throw some different stuff out there. Austin Slotman actually came in and was the starter over Patrick Morris. So that's going to be a very interesting competition to watch there with Schlotman and Morris. Morris actually played better at right guard than he did at center, but everyone was kind of under the impression that Schlotman was going to play as like a swing guard kind of a candidate there with Ntani Moody not being able to come in. But with Patrick Morris not being the starter there, Austin Schlotman, that kind of speaks volumes as to what we really think about Austin Schlotman and Pat Morris being Mike Munchak's true pet project. Now, guys, don't want to do this in a
hold on. Real quick on that is, I think that the thing of Austin Slotman, he's just a placeholder. Lloyd Cushenberry, he's still getting the playbook down. They want him to start. So I think that's just all that is there. And then James, I wanted to get this too. Is I think Tuska makes the squad ahead of Reed. Tuska seems to have more value than Reed, who should have a pretty good chance of sticking on to the practice squad. I know we always overvalue players. Tuska has buzz. I actually agree. I think that the big difference here is that Tuska's able to defend the run. Malik Reed was I don't want to say terrible there. He wasn't good there last year. And then there's the whole issue that Malik Reed, he hit a wall and he completely plateaued and fell off a cliff there towards the middle of the season to the end of the season. Started off hot and just couldn't sustain it, which is why we saw Jeremiah Tauchu step in and kind of filled that role. So I think that those are two big things that Tuska has going for him. I also think the fact that he plays with power and strength is another big bonus for him. Whereas Reed is just athleticism and quickness. But he's got to step up, otherwise he's going to be like Jeff Holland and make the roster last year and then not make it this year.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you on that. I was going to bring that up. Malik Reed has no power, no strength to his game at all, and that was where he actually failed when he was actually winning with that first step quickness and the ability to bend and get around the edge like that. There weren't offensive linemen and tight ends chipping him and stuff like that. It was like the early in the season, the Los Angeles Chargers game, week 5. He actually had a really good game, a sack and a half in that game. Really looked like a promising edge depth piece right after Bradley Chubb left. With his torn ACL. But when guys were out there and they were firing off the ball and chipping him and everything like that, he got pushed off balance so many times, and he's a liability in the running game. Derek Tuska has the opportunity because he understands leverage. He has a very good length. His arms are, I think, 34 and a half or 35 inches long. Very long arms. So he understands leverage, length, and uses good power. Like speed to power is the biggest thing. Malik Reed doesn't have that. So that's the biggest thing. Now, Eric, I'm going to let you take it.
Sorry. We actually have a super chat.
Oh,
Dennis Elliott came in and said, Eric, donating $5. Thank you, Dennis, for that. Eric, grade Jeudy Lamb rugs at the end of the season. Let's see if Jeudy trickles down to 3. I like the pun there. Really like the pun. Anything involved in my last name. Awesome puns. But yeah, as I said, I plan on doing that. I just can't forget by the end of the season. I saw somebody else mention, why haven't we signed Logan Ryan? That's because Logan Ryan's terrible. And then before we get out of here, I want to address this. Rob Williams says, you guys can't have it both ways. Downplay Locke's picks and drill Hammer for dropping a pass seems a little unfair. It's first day of training camp. If it continues to happen, then drill accordingly. Love the show. Keep up the good work. And the big difference is that Hamler had dropped 25% of passes in college. It was an issue in college. And here it is. And the pass that he dropped, it hit him right in the hands. There is no excuse for that drop whatsoever. It's not an issue of timing. It's not an issue of lack of chemistry with the receivers. It is just the fact that it hit his hands, bounced off, and ended up with an interception. Now, if it was a situation where it was a little bit out of his reach and he was reaching for it, or it was a little bit early there and he was reaching for it and it hit his hand, something like that, then it is an issue of timing. And that is something that we wouldn't drill him as much for, but it hit his hands. It bounced out of his hands, and it's an issue that he had going back to college. It's a sustained issue that needs to be coached out of him. And we're not trying to drill him for it. We're just trying to sit there and say that that's an issue that they've got to work on, and it's an issue that they've had to work on for a while now.
Yeah. There's a big difference between like learning the quarterback position, learning new weapons and whatnot, and doing a basic task in the NFL game.
Yeah.
Like the quarterback position is the most important position in sports. It's the hardest position in sports to learn. And you're going to have some ups and downs, especially as a young quarterback. As a wide receiver, your one job is to catch the football every time. If it hits your hands, you should catch it. Like, period. Jerry Rice said that. Rod Smith said that. Ed McCaffrey said that. All the great wide receivers say, if it hits you in the hands, you should catch the football. That ball hit KJ Hamler directly in the hands. It was above his head, but it hit him in the hands. He should catch that football every single time.
Yeah. Now, guys, it's going to get a little bit of a somber note, and I'm actually going to be a little bit of a Debbie Downer here. But something happened this week, and I just kind of want to talk about this. And I just want to say that if any of you guys are ever feeling down, feeling like that you are in a dark spot and don't have a way out, feel free to reach out to me. You guys know my Twitter. It's right there on the screen, at Erick Trickel. It's not a burden to me. I'm always here. I'm always open. I know how it feels to be in a dark spot. It's something that I've dealt with a lot over the years and everything. So feel free to reach out to me. If you guys don't want to reach out to me, there's an awesome source here, and it's this National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Numbers right there on the screen. Just no matter what's going on, guys, things do get better. I know it may be hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel now, but things do get better. And we as a community, we're here for you. If you need any help with anything, if you're in a dark spot, whatever the case may be, just got to reach out. Just let us know. And we're here for you. Like, we have an awesome community. Just got to reach out. We'll be here for you.
Yeah. Always hit me at Sanderson MHH if you guys are ever in any kind of a situation. For not to try to ruin anything here, we got reached out to, and we know you're listening. We hope you're listening. And if you ever need anything, reach out to me at Sanderson MHH as well. Direct message me. I am always there for you guys. We're definitely there for you. And it's very difficult right now. So hopefully we hear back from you soon. We do hope to hear back from you soon. All right, to wrap today's episode up, guys, once again, follow us on Twitter at Sanderson MHH, for Erick at Erick Trickel. Follow the show at DVDD_pod. Make sure you guys are following at Mile High Huddle as well for instant news and updates on your Denver Broncos. But for today, we're going to wrap it up here. You guys stay safe and take care. And if you ever
Thank you, Terry, for the $2 donation.
Yeah,
we appreciate that.
Thank you for everything. For everything you guys do. You guys make us want to come in here every single day and do this. It's without your guys' support and without people like that reaching out to us, you guys don't understand. This isn't just football. This is family. So you guys stay safe and take care and have a great rest of your weekend. And we'll see you guys next week.